Okay, I think we're live. Hello everyone. In these times of the coronavirus, meaning we are all quarantined, having to stay at home, not being able to go out, and rightfully so, because we don't want to put our NHS staff at risk. These guys are working incredibly hard to try and deal with this crisis that we've got at the moment. They are essentially fighting a war against this virus. And we, as the civilians, need to make sure that we're not making their position any worse than it actually is. So this whole corona thing made me think a lot about the concept of living deliberately. It's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I think it started when I watched a video where someone was talking to Jamie Dimon, the chairman and CEO of JP Morgan, after he had his treatment for cancer. I think he recovered. So, and unfortunately he is currently ill, so hopefully he gets better. My thoughts are with him and his family and all the staff at JP Morgan at the moment. But essentially one thing he talked about was the concept of living deliberately. He was saying that he didn't think that he'd have, let's say, 20 or 30 more years to live. So he had to think about, is he using the time that he has, and let's say the now more limited time, well? And this is something that really, resonated with me, and especially I think after my grandmother passed away. So my paternal grandmother, my dad's mom, she was possibly the relative I was closest to. Like, she was pretty much my favorite person growing up. Every school holiday, all I ever wanted to do was go to her house, and if I didn't get my way, I would cry and throw a tantrum. And by the way, I wasn't a kid that threw tantrums. I was like a chilled one, but I was a chilled kid. But that's the one thing that used to make me go a bit nuts. So yeah, she meant a lot to me, and she actually passed away. She was in hospital, and I think she had some breathing difficulties. She did recover from having tuberculosis a couple of years before, but let's say 10 years before she passed away, I think she had a tuberculosis scare. And yeah, I remember at that time, I was so caught up in general life. So I think, my career was starting to, I'd finally got back to doing the job that I actually applied for in my organization. And, slowly building up the momentum, trying to improve myself physically, trying to make more time with my friends and family, things like that, and just generally socially. So, it was easy to get caught up in everything, and there was always one urgent thing after another. And I guess this is a curse that a lot of us millennials have, I guess, is to be able to figure out where our life is going to go now, to almost achieve everything we need to as soon as possible. And that's because we don't have the wisdom of experience. Well, at least we didn't at that. Well, I didn't at that point in time. A career is a long thing, a life is a long thing, and you just can't have everything at the same time, but you can have everything over time. And that's an important lesson, one of the most important lessons right there. So anyway, I got caught up in all the things I wanted to achieve, and being a driven sort of dude, it was, there was always something happening, and everything was urgent, and everything was, I gotta get it now, I gotta impress people, I gotta, get promoted, etc., etc. And in my mind, I had a mental calculation of when my grandmother would have passed away. And in my mind, I thought she had at least 10 more years to live. at that point in time, at least 10 years. And my whole thing was, once I've handled all of this stuff, then I'll go and spend a lot more time with her. But then, as so happens in life, it comes in and literally kicks you in the nuts. And that's what happened to me, because all of a sudden, all these assumptions that I had about people living a long time. Now, here's the interesting thing. I didn't always think that I would live forever. So I kind of was, I had to think about, right, if you died, blah, 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 and, what would happen. And I guess I was very comfortable with me dying. But the one thing I completely forgot was everyone else is also aging. Everyone else is getting one step closer to them dying. And you can't just assume that someone's gonna be alive, in the short run even. Like they might be gone today. So it's important that we use the time that we have with them and really make the most of it. You don't want to reach the end of each of these people's lives and then be like, oh shit, I should have spent more time with them. No, you gotta start using the time now, like make time for them, kind of thing. So then after my grandmother passed away, it was a real shock to the system, because you can imagine, like, this is your most favorite person growing up. You assumed that you've got 10 more years with them, and you thought, okay, in another 6 months I can really start making time with her, and then all of a sudden she's gone, literally in the blink of an eye. It's something that's going to really shock your system and start making you think. So after that, I started really thinking about, the concept of living deliberately. And we shouldn't live assuming that we are going to live forever. It's kind of like take up whatever opportunities that are given to you. Assume that, let's say, it's a bit hard to word this actually. So let's say what you want to do is with the things that are finite, make time for them now. So there's certain things like the lives of other people, and let's say the stage of life that you're in. So, we all have to switch this off. Sorry, that was my go to sleep alarm. So anyway, the stages of life that we are in, these things change. So school was once at a time, university was another kind of another stage of life, and then the start of your career is one stage of life, and then once you get given a lot of like managerial responsibility, that's another stage of life, and it just keeps going. And the key to success, I feel like, comes down to enjoying every aspect of life. So every stage of life, make the most of it. So that's one thing. And I guess that relates to aging anyway. So, and also your loved ones, your friends, your your parents, your siblings, your immediate family, your closest friends, your other friends, all these important people who have helped you become the person you are at the moment. You need to make time for them, because you never know what kind of stuff is going to happen. They're not going to live forever, and you never know when things might happen to them. So there might be circumstances that force them to completely change how they live their lives, right? And you can't spend as much time with them anymore. So whilst you have the time, whilst you have the opportunity, make the most of it. And this, if you live deliberately, then these things aren't going to be a problem, because by default, at each and every stage, you're going to be making the most of the people and, let's say, the current opportunities that you have that you might not have in the future. And I feel like, man, people are probably responsible for like 80% of your happiness. So, reach out to them. Reach out to all the people who maybe you want to reach out to, but you haven't reached out to in a long time. Like the one thing this coronavirus situation has one of the, let's say, silver linings, and there's always a silver lining to everything, is that, if you're probably not you don't have as much stuff on the diary as you used to do. So this is probably the time to go back and refresh some of these relationships and start investing in them going forward. Think about these people. And we've got so much technology, even though we're at home, like, we can still open up. I think one of the recent ones I've been, like, someone's recommended is House Party, and I've, like, played around with that, and it seems to be an okay app, but it's pretty cool. It's like, you can, even though you're not there, you still get that, not visceral, but let's say visual. You get that visual feel of being able to talk to people, being able to see their reactions. And I think that's quite important with humans. Like, you want to be able to see facial expressions and stuff like that. It's really important when it comes to communication. And I almost feel like that stuff will make you feel closer, like just that eye contact and stuff like that. And also, if people see your face, then it almost feels like they are kind of there, even though it's not totally visceral. It's still, they're still there, visually speaking. And human beings, I think, on the whole, are pretty visual creatures. Don't quote me on that. That's just an anecdotal observation that I made, rather than one backed up by research. Anyway, so I'll probably make a couple more. I'll probably try and make more of these whilst we're on this Corona lockdown, because I wanted to invest a lot more time in this podcast for the future. But since we're all here, maybe this might be a good way for all of us who are trying to live deliberately, trying to live a lifestyle where we are aiming to do as much good as we can, but also aiming to be as disciplined as possible. Maybe we can all, I don't know, it'll be nice to see if there's any of you out there who are actually interested in this kind of stuff. Then maybe we can all touch base every so often. So I'll try and do more of those. But if you've listened to this so far, thank you very much for listening. And if there is anything that you are interested in going forward, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going with the topics that pop up into my head. Anyway, take care of yourself. Remember to follow not the orders, but follow the guidelines that your governments have been giving you. It may seem a bit frustrating, but ultimately we got to look out for the people who are on the front lines and fighting this virus. And it's important that we reward their efforts and them putting themselves at risk by doing our part. So let's not let them down, and let's try our best to keep doing our jobs as well as we can whilst being at home. So let's not let our standards slip, so that we can help keep the economy ticking, because this thing will be over, and the more we can do whilst we're in crisis, the better things will be once we're on the other end of it. So that's it for now. This is the first, I don't know what to call this, I'll try and broadcast, something like that. So let's just call it, let's just call it a broadcast. This is the first broadcast in the Sheepdog Mindset podcast. Actually, the first Corona broadcast. So this is the first coronavirus broadcast on the Sheepdog Mindset podcast. And I hope it was helpful in some way, or at least a little bit interesting. But yeah, everyone take care of yourself, and be productive and live deliberately. All right, take care.